Well, here we are again. Triple R Studios, Ray's Record Room, and the great man is by my side once again, Sugar Ray Nosty. How's that? How are you, Sugar?
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to speak to Jenny Thompson, the gold medal swimmer from America. I can't wait to ask you all about that.
And down the far end of the card table, we've got the man, Mike Big Roy Whitney.
Dawsey, how are you? And Ahmund.
Hey, widow.
It's Ray. It's not Jenny Thompson.
Yeah, it's got Jenny Thompson.
It's not the Olympic swimmer. Jenny Thompson is an American who is a gun swimmer.
Yeah.
This Jenny Thompson lives in Australia and she's English, born in England.
I wasted all my time on the research. Oh, no, hang on. No. Do you know, excuse me, do you know Wayne Rooney?
Oh, I was waiting for this one.
Were you waiting for that? I'm just checking. Do you know Wayne Rooney? That's all. Sorry,
no,
is that the wrong one?
I left England around the time of that scandal, and my old colleague at Cricinfo said, well, you've got to leave the country now.
Oh, that's right. So you come back here to convict land, eh, in Australia. Well done.
So what?
Yes, but I'm in South Australia, the free settler state, you know.
So we'll throw to Mike, because Mike's going to do the proper intro now. So
sorry about that. I can't help myself.
Ray's out, you know.
Jenny Thompson,
resident
the
crazy
Olympic
person.
swimmer. That's very funny, Ray.
So over to you.
Thank you, Dawsey. Well, let me first start with this as part of the interview. Women's cricket is, for the last 5 years and 5 years before, I've always been aware of women's cricket because they've always played. But the last 5 years has just been incredible, and the last couple of years, the skill level of the girls all around the world is just shooting up like a rocket to the moon.
They can actually throw the ball now.
They can actually throw the ball now, right? So this lady we're about to interview is very, very involved in women's cricket. Were you born in Leeds?
No, I was born on the other side of the Pennines. I was born just outside Manchester in a satellite town called Stockport.
I'm glad, because I played a lot of cricket in Lancashire and they hate the dudes from Yorkshire. It's the Roses.
Bit of a clash,
but let me finish the introduction. Not only is she involved in women's cricket, she's been involved with ESPN Cricket Info, Sky Sports as a journalist. Your career started there. You came to Adelaide in 2009. ECB qualified, Cricket Australia updated coach, ad hoc coaching with individuals or teams. Nicknames: Winner, Splitter, Sarita, Tomo or JT. You're an all-rounder, right-hand bat.
Thurston.
Jonathan Thurston, JT.
Yeah.
No, Jenny Thompson.
Okay.
Yep.
I do love the Cowboys, actually. Particularly at one point, we had three JTs.
You knew, Ray.
Yep.
You knew.
So.
And has played a lot of cricket and has even bowled to Mike Hussey at the Adelaide Oval. What a player.
Go the Huss.
And faced Shane Warne in Southampton, the great Warnie. Well, would we please welcome to the How's That podcast, Jenny Thompson.
Woo! How's that?
Thank you. That is the nicest welcome I've had in my life. Can we do this every week?
Jenny, that's a big intro, mate.
No.
And I didn't mention a number of things, which I'm sure we'll get to. But that, and I also looked over the page on a few little notes I've scratched, and it says, Jenny's been to these countries. That's going to take too long to read all them out, so we'll talk about that later. Dawsey, back to you.
Yeah, starting back to your younger days, how did you get into cricket? And, how did that all begin?
Well, as the story of my generation certainly goes, it's through your older brother. So I became a bowler because in the backyard, he had to bat all day.
I know what you're going to say. He wouldn't let you bat.
Well, you know, and I only thought about this the other day, but there were windows on the offside in our backyard. And that's my excuse to why I can only play the pull shot, because that was onto the grass. So, you know, this is up there in the top 3 happiest days of my life when I was 11 years old, and at school I got to play alongside my boys' team because I didn't know there was women's cricket at all in those days. And I got my name in the scorebook. I think it was a DNB and a DNB.
DNB
but at least,
did not bat. Your name's in the
ball,
book.
But at least I was in the scorebook, and it was a dream. I didn't even know I could dream, because we, as far as I was concerned, I was, destined for the backyard my entire life. And now I'm going all around the world. So that's pretty cool. Then they set up a women's cricket team in my area. My mum read about it in the local paper, and I dragged her along. And that was it. From there, I played lots of cricket, and here we are now.
What was the reaction from the boys to you playing cricket at that stage?
Well, the boys in my school were extremely supportive. They were brilliant, and I was always, and still am, a complete geek, and they were cool. So I had this double barrier in a way. But the guys were just lovely. And then we'd go and play the other teams. And my mum very presciently said to me before I went to play, she said, now, the other team, they're going to ask you, do you open the bowling or do you open the batting? I was like, but Mum, I'm, number 10 or 11, and I might get a dibbly-dobbly later on in the when we're fielding. But she goes, well, we know that, but they'll expect you to be the best. I was like, oh. And sure enough, that happened. But the other thing, these boys would come up to me, are you a girl? And I would say, well, the last time I checked, and they would look horrified and run away, because we were all 12 and we were all scared, really.
And
so
what year are you talking about? Like, just to set the scene, what year was that happening about?
Well, I'm not sure if we're allowed to ask the lady, but it was the early 90s.
Okay, yep.
Mate, there were so many of the women of this generation playing for Australia, and the last generation, people like Meg Lanning, who's been one of the greatest players of all time, played with the men.
Unreal.
Is she a swimmer?
Yeah.
Had to. Meg Lanning's a cricketer, right? Jesus. But played with the men. I think a lot of those girls playing for Australia did because they didn't have an opportunity to play in women's cricket teams. And if they did play in the women's cricket team, they were 250 not out every day and took all the wickets, so they needed better competition. And I think that's held them in great stead now when they're playing Test cricket and one day and T20.
And Jenny,
it did. And I just want to interrupt that. Sorry to interrupt, but there's this big contention these days about, oh no, girls and women should stick. This is by women often in the game. We need our game to be very, very strong. So women should not play in men's and boys' teams. And I disagree with that, because I think I play in a men's team at the moment, and you learn so much, and it's a different spirit. There's so many different facets, but also I think it's important for visibility as well. So, it is interesting that they say that, but I agree with you. It definitely lifts your game.
So Jenny, at a young age, did you have any players, like Test players or international players you looked up to and who were idols of yours, or?
Well, this is the thing. I love it these days when, you can go in, I would just go in my club, and we had sometimes put the WBBL on, and I'd listen to the guys talking about local players going, oh, she's having a good season, she's not. They're not necessarily internationals even. But in my day, how I broke into the England junior setup was by getting someone out, and everyone pushed and said, wow, something, and I knew something had happened, but I didn't know what. They said, don't you know who you've got out? She's been playing for England for 2 years. I said, where do I know anything about England women's cricket? We don't know anything about women's cricket. And it was Charlotte Edwards.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have any.
Ray doesn't know Jenny who Charlotte Edwards is.
I have heard of her.
Captain of England, unbelievable player.
She swam in the Commonwealth Games.
She didn't swim in the Commonwealth Games. She's a cricketer.
Sorry.
Captained England, one of the greatest female cricketers ever that's ever played the game. And you knocked her over in the nets or in a game?
In a game. So I beat her Edge twice. This was a sort of junior England trial. I beat her Edge twice and caught it the third time.
Wow.
I didn't know what I'd done, but...
Wow.
Is that after her eye operation? Is that before?
Ask Ray.
Hey,
Wow.
blind cricket is extremely tricky, and I'm looking forward to playing some this year.
Sorry.
Because I hear it's really, really hard.
But Jenny, those moments when you realised who you knocked over and that you'd actually beaten her outside the off stump a couple of times are really pivotal moments in your career, aren't they?
Well, yes and no. I mean, they're a pivotal memory and the pivotal in the narrative, really, of women's cricket, because if we can use Charlotte Edwards as an example. So 10 years later, I was writing about her, and one of my colleagues, he emailed me and he said, "Women's cricket has arrived." I said, "What do you mean, Don?" He said, "Charlotte Edwards is the answer in a Guardian crossword clue."
Oh, wow.
I love
And that's
crosswords.
the kind of level that we were.
Yeah.
And Charlotte's from that era where we were administered under the Women's Cricket Association. Before we'd even been taken in by the ECB, we had those ridiculous skirts, those long, impractical socks.
Culottes.
Paid
Were
for
they called
everything
culottes?
ourselves.
I hated them.
Culottes.
Yeah, they were.
Culottes.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, we paid for your tours, your blazers, badges, whatever you needed. And then one day, Charlotte, this was the buzz of the women's cricket community. Charlotte Edwards, she'd been given a car by Peugeot. It was like a 106. She'd been given a car, and it was orange, and then it said down the side, Charlotte Edwards, and then it had to say international cricketer, in case they thought she was a Commonwealth swimmer or something.
So in our extensive research, Jenny, we've
you're doing well.
Cheshire women's side and Hertfordshire women's. Was that in your junior days?
Oh, no. In the junior days, this was how England was carved up. The whole of the West acted as sort of 10 counties agglomerated. We were Lancashire and Cheshire.
Yep.
Then we would play East Anglia, and Yorkshire was, advanced enough to have its own team. In fact, they had two teams. They had two teams for most. It was a bit like that. Might still be as well. And then, so Cheshire is actually quite the powerhouse in women's cricket, but of course suffers from not being a first-class county in the men's game. And at the time when the ECB took us over and then they realigned all the counties to follow the first-class and minor county model, we got to pick if we wanted to play for Cheshire or Lancashire.
Is that where all the cats come from?
Yes, it is. The Cheshire Cats. As in Alice in Wonderland.
Wow.
Yeah, the grinning, hovering cats. And the cheese, Cheshire cheese.
Cheshire cheese.
right.
Is that true?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's true.
Cheshire
I
cheese.
wouldn't lie to you.
No, I know. I've just never had shit. I can't even say it.
Is that the place where they have the cheese and they roll it down the hill? And is that in Cheshire as well? Where
That's
they chase
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire. That's Gloucestershire.
Cheese rolling.
that.
Yeah.
Did you play that at all? Did you go down the hill with the cheese?
That's mad, though.
No,
That
not
is really
yet.
mad.
That would have been great for the podcast.
Well, I know. Never rule anything out. I'm going back to England in a few months, so, I might just roll myself down the hill.
No,
I don't know.
don't.
Who
I was
knows?
only joking.
You never know.
When you said you had to decide whether you're going to play for Lancashire or Cheshire,
Yeah.
surely you'd have to play for Lancashire, wouldn't you? Because they're a county club and got more money, and it wasn't influential.
What I said to the team was, I said, we know the future and we know the way that it's going, so pick love or money.
Yeah, right.
But still in those days, and still for 10 or 15 years afterwards, it wasn't that much more of, you weren't that much more, it wasn't more beneficial to play for Lancashire. But we knew that one day it would be. And then look at it these days, with the women off on pre-season tours to Mumbai. We had our entire county season down. We were in the top division from which they picked the England side. So you'd have 5 days, Monday to Friday, because we could only all take up that week off work, camping in a tent, playing 50 over matches in Cambridge.
First class.
Absolutely ridiculous.
First class.
That's what it was.
I mean, you think about that now.
It's unbelievable.
Even now,
And
it's not that long ago.
ago.
That's right.
It's not that long ago.
No. Even look, our girls here are getting pretty well looked after now, but that was a massive fight, and only because we've got the ACA who stood up and fought for them and wanted, some things on parity and some extra cash so they could be professionals. Because how are you going to work and play if you want to develop your skills to be the best players in the world? You've got to be at it every day. So luckily for us and England, I think maybe New Zealand, India are in that situation. But a lot of these other teams aren't. And I suppose that's our next topic of conversation. You've been going to a lot of these countries, and some of the countries, I'm just going to turn this page over, you wouldn't even expect in Estonia, Latvia, Cambodia, Romania, Jersey I can go, Ireland I can go, Spain, but some of those I wouldn't have even thought that they would have known what cricket is. Now, you go to these countries to try and encourage the cricket, but my understanding is you're also taking cricket gear there to give them to encourage them to play. Is that right?
Yes, in many cases. So I'm actually being sent by Cricket Without Borders, which is the Victorian-based organisation, in a few weeks to Fiji and Vanuatu. I'm taking over so much gear. I took over some to Indonesia, and then later on this year when I go to Uganda and Bangladesh and South Africa and Barbados, I've got some equipment to take over as well. I just wish I could take more, but...
So do you take this equipment, sorry to interrupt you, do you take this equipment yourself and hand it out, or...? Yeah,
I do. And then that's mainly through donations, and my tour itself is self-funded.
Yeah, because I was... I'm sorry, I'm a bit nervous here. I did the rugby league, the junior rugby league, and we used to send a lot of equipment to like Papua New Guinea and Fiji, and those people just thought it was like Christmas. Do you know what I mean? So it's very important. I'm glad you're doing that.
Jenny, with the gear, you said a lot of it's donated. Is that from grade cricket clubs or cricket distributors, people who have sporting shops that have got more gear than they need? Where does it actually come from?
Sadly not, actually. The vast majority that I've collected myself has been cash donations from people that I've gone to, like, cash converters or whatever. The other day I won a cricket kit in a raffle. I mean, I have my pick of the raffle, so I was like, I'll take the cricket kit, then I can take that to Vanuatu. That would be nice. So, sadly, I have approached some places, but, just... cricket's really silent, so that's a shame. But
well, look, in my other life a few years ago, I was hosting a show for the 7 Network up here in New South Wales called Sydney Weekender, and I'd been out to Norfolk Island a few times, and I actually went up to the school one morning at Norfolk Island, and there was kids playing in the nets, and they had no gear, no gear at all. So I promised them that I would send them some gear. So I came back to my club here in Sydney, Randwick Petersham. Yeah. Which is one of the premier grade clubs in Sydney. So it's a big club with a lot of players. We've got 5 grades and 2 other teams. And I said, anybody who doesn't want, have you got some old gear that you don't want, just bring it along in the next couple of weeks. And we got like 14 kits.
Wow.
And by the time we put it all together, that generous. With that and that with that, we ended up with over a dozen kits, which they paid for the travel, and I sent them to Norfolk Island. So I'm saying this to you, Jenny. If you're up in Sydney, I could appeal to my club, Randwick Petersham, and say, have we got some spare kit that Jenny can have to take on the travels? That wouldn't be a drama. I'd be happy to do that for you.
Oh, thank you.
And the bonus is I'm the president of the club, so...
there you go.
President's orders!
Let me backtrack a bit here, Jenny, and your nicknames. How did you come up with Winner and Splitter? And Tomo's obviously pretty obvious, and JT, but Winner and Splitter, how did they come about?
Oh, they were from my cricket food days. I ended up playing with in the team of the social men's team of Andrew Miller, and our team is called the Solariacs. So I was the only female Solarietta.
Solarietta, I love it.
He was most disappointed when I ran away to Australia, so he called me a splitter. And then, Winner's just like, if I did something, I'm full of ridiculous things, so I'm always doing something slapstick to the point where literally everyone who knows me is like, how have you even got around the world? I don't know how you've done it. I mean, there's many crazy stories already of travel mishaps.
I know how you've done it.
As you can imagine, so, it's kind of like, oh, well done, Winner. Kind of endearingly sarcastic.
Interesting. And before we go on to your world travels, after you graduated from the University of Leeds with the double honours in English literature and management studies that Widow mentioned before, you started out with Sky Sports. And how did that come about? And tell us a bit about that.
So I answered an advert in The Guardian. I'd done my postgraduate in journalism in Yorkshire as I'd done my undergrad in Yorkshire. So I don't really dislike them. It's all teasing with Yorkshire.
War of the Roses. Come on, Jenny. The War of the Roses. And when Lancashire plays Yorkshire, it's called the Roses match.
Yeah, but the funny thing was, the women take that one really seriously. Or we used to when, everybody was from Lancashire or Cheshire versus Yorkshire. But I was really disappointed to hear that the men didn't really care about it. They were all quite good friends. I was like, guys, you're doing it wrong.
Well, I'll tell you who did care about it. I proed for Haslingden in the Lancashire League, Littleborough in the Central Lancs League, and Fleetwood in the Northern League. And they fucking hated the blokes from Yorkshire. Tell them to fuck off back over the fucking border.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, they did. Fucking Yorkies, that's all they said all the time. So I'm a die-hard, dedicated Lancastrian. I played my first test match at Old Trafford. I should have asked you this earlier. You've got to be either a City, Manchester City, or a United supporter.
Which one?
I go for United, but in my house growing up, very much divided. My dad's City, my mum's United, and he tested her by on their first date. He took her to Main Road. It was freezing for a meat pie and a bovril, and she hung around. So he thought, you're not too bad. But my granddad used to be a copper, and actually he arrested Gary Sobers one day, but that's another story.
That's a good story.
And then... so he ended up working in Stretford. So he was at the Stretford end when my mum used to... So she was allowed to go when she was a kid. I wasn't allowed to go because it was the 80s and, it was extremely violent back in it had gone very violent by the time I was born and grown up. But Mum was allowed when she was a kid because Grandad could keep an eye on her and she used to watch George Best running up and down the wing. And legend. I love Cantona. You can't beat Cantona.
You just said that your dad took your mum to the footy, bought her a pie and a bovril.
And a bovril.
Now, I know what a bovril is because I've been to Lancashire.
They got a few there? They got a few bovrils?
Is that a drink of some kind?
It is a drink. It's almost like Vegemite. Sort of. It's like Vegemite put in hot water.
Liquefied.
Yeah. Bovril.
Wow.
Yeah, beef Vegemite.
Yeah, it is. And that you mix it up and you have a...
I might have had that.
You have a hot Bovril. And away you go and a pie. Yeah, Bovril.
That might go well with a meat pie,
I knew exactly what a Bovril was, but there'd be a few listeners out there
He was all excited about that.
What's a bloody Bovril?
Writing it down. I know what it is.
I know what a Bovril is,
But the Gary Sobers
Maybe
thing...
we could import some.
I think you can get it.
Don't worry about it.
There's an English shop. I think there's an English shop that just sells...
Ramwick.
And there's also a Scottish butcher in Maroubra, near where I live, and he does haggis and black pudding and meat pies and all that. And I reckon I might have seen some Bovril. He brings in some British and Scottish products there. You can get iron... What's that drink? Iron something. Iron brew. Iron brew. Yep. I've never seen it in Australia. See it in his shop there. Crazy.
That's for the
love
backpackers.
An iron brew.
Yeah.
So was it the Gary Sobers thing? What was...
He arrested Gary Sobers.
What was
it?
Was it do you know the story or...?
Well, I'd have to get clarification from my mum, who used to run the police station with my nana while Grandad was out on the beat. It was very like Heartbeat, if you've ever seen that. He'd cycle round on his pushback. But I think Gary had just had a few too many that day.
As we have do sometimes, yeah.
He loved a night out. Gary Sobers loved a night out and a punt. Very big on the horse racing. Yeah. Could you imagine being an English bobby saying, "Hey, looking last night, I had to arrest Gary Sobers." That's like a little tick, isn't it, on the wall? You arrested 3,852 people, but I arrested Gary Sobers, Sir Garfield. Yeah.
So on to the Sky Sports. Was that commentary or just journalism in like the print media? What was that at Sky Sports?
It was sort of behind the scenes. Was sort of production stuff. I worked on Sky Text at some times, and we also had the contract for Man United Mobile to do the text commentary. So they said, "Oh, go on, Tomo, you're the one eye in this office, and you're allowed to be a little bit biased with your writing. So go for it." Yeah. So I was there a couple of years, and then just saw the advert on Cricinfo for the job. So I thought, well, there we go. Done 10 years unpaid cricket writing experience, ready for this opportunity, and I was lucky enough to get the job.
Wow. So for the ESPN, and that's how you came to Australia as well, I believe?
Yes, they transferred me. So that was completely a dream, and then I just rocked up to my local cricket club, but you've got to bear in mind that as a Pom growing up in the 90s, you have a certain idea of what Australians are, which is sporting gods, because they'd beam in, obviously we'd be getting stuffed at the cricket all the time, and then they'd beam in the triathlons and all this. So I just rock up to my local club in Port Adelaide, and they're like, so we'll just have a trial and we'll see which club team we'll put you in. And I was like, hold on, trialling for club cricket, what is this? They're like, we've got A to C grades. I was like, oh, okay. And they said, so they said, oh, you're good. Well, you can go in A grades, and your captain will be Karen Rolton, who was the captain at the time of Australia. Yes. When she was captaining Australia, then they said, you'll be first changed behind Emma Sampson, who at the time was opening the bowling for Australia.
Wow.
I said, who else is in this league?
Wow.
They said, Shelley Nitschke. I said, oh, right, okay. So, it absolutely confirmed what I believed, that, they were the biggest players
in Australia at the time, Jenny. Those three girls that you mentioned were fabulous cricketers.
Oh, you're not kidding. I said, I've just put Nitto as I was on the voting panel for her to be the ICC Female Cricketer of the Year, the inaugural one.
Oh, wow.
So, it did nothing to diminish my idea of Aussie sporting gods. But one thing that I would like to say, we were talking about equity before and opportunities in terms of money, but it's not just that, it's the facilities. I often drive past the local football club, Rosewater Football Club, which is an absolute cabbage patch to play cricket on, as you can completely imagine. And I'm getting angry now, and this is 15 years on. One day I'll get over it.
Let it out.
Thank you. I know I'm in good company, supportive company. But they wouldn't put the men's even D grade on this pitch. And I was batting at the other end of Australia's captain. I was like, I don't even think we had any toilet facilities. I was like, this is disgusting. But this week when I drove past, I said to my friend, isn't it good that could never happen now? Because Karen's got her own oval named after it, never mind anything else.
And well deserved too. It's a beautiful place. But I think back to when I was playing for New South Wales, which was in the 80s and early 90s. I think the New South Wales cricket team, the Breakers, were still paying their own airfares and accommodation to go away and play in the competitions.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's changed a lot now, and as it should be, because as far as New South Wales is concerned and the Australian women's cricket team, we've been the best side in the world for a long, long time. And and there was no recognition. I mean, it's just bizarre when I think about it, Jenny, how there was just nothing going on.
Well, can I come from another angle? Now, I'm sorry, don't get upset with me, but I thought it was pretty pedestrian, the women's cricket. Sorry, you can boo me for that. But it's really, but it's really picked up of late, and I think everyone who backs the women's cricket can see that. And I think it was the bowling. The bowling was always great, you know, because a lot of the girls had brothers that wouldn't let them bat. So, so they were always had great bowlers, and the batsmen were great. Wicketkeeper was great. It was just the fielding, the outfield was just lacking a bit. But I reckon they've come up. Have they not, Whit? Like they've really come up.
Mate, the women's BBL and the women who are playing at the top level now, they train like the men train.
Sure.
Go on, Dawes.
The leg spinner, sorry to interrupt, the King for
Alana King.
I was watching her the other night
King.
at the gig, and wow, what an action she's got. She's fantastic.
Oh, they're all fantastic.
And I didn't know she played soccer also, was Cleary's girlfriend.
Do we have a cricket sound effect? No, we don't. Like
which Cleary?
The girl, the King, who spins for Australia, the spinner.
Cleary who?
Nathan Cleary.
Nathan Cleary.
Wrong person, right?
No, she lives in Western Australia, mate. She could not be Nathan Cleary.
But she plays soccer for Australia too.
No.
No? Okay, sorry. Sorry about that.
That's it. That Alana King's about 6'2". The Alana King cricketer is about 5'6".
Close then.
And same colouring as me, same hair as me.
Yeah.
We look like mob.
Okay. Sorry.
And Jenny, when the differences between when you first played cricket here, the differences between cricket here and in England, was there a big difference?
I'll answer that. I just agree, actually, that women's cricket used to be awful. It was boring. And I covered it out of a deep desire for equality and for, you know, kind of advocacy and justice. And it is so lovely to see how amazing it is now.
Yes.
But it was rubbish because, I mean, that's too strong a word, but, you know, it was rubbish because, or not particularly aesthetically pleasing, exactly because the women weren't funded, they weren't supported, they weren't given the opportunities.
Yes.
And look what happens now when they are. So, yes, and then the difference, I mean, I guess, you know, when you play in England, you'll notice the difference just with the conditions when you come out. But it's all, I mean, I don't know really what to say. Just
I know what you're trying to. I know what you're trying to say because I follow the women's rugby league. I'm a big rugby league supporter, and it was the same thing for the women's rugby league. Do you mean they would get nothing? They'd only get one state of origin game. They would be playing in paddocks, and now, you know, and I follow it because I think that's better than the men's.
Yeah,
you
likewise. I've watched
it.
I'd rather watch the women than the men.
Geez, we better not play this podcast before the footy season starts.
Oh, geez. No, I didn't say that. You made me say that. It's written down here. No, and the women's, like we were at this gig and we're musicians, so we were playing at this gig and we were watching the women's play
rugby league,
playing cricket.
The cricket. That's right. Yes.
Like usually we would get up and walk away. But we watched the whole thing while we were eating, so it's a good thing, mate. It's really happening.
I think the level of their play. I mean, I just talk about the rugby league too because I'm a tragic. The skill level is the thing, and they're getting stronger. Yeah. You know, if I look at girls like Phoebe Litchfield, who's opening the batting, Alyssa Healy, they're not very tall, but they're great athletes. They're really good. Talia McGrath. I could go through the whole of the Australian women's
Gardner.
Ash Gardner. They're really, really, really good athletes. If I went through the English team and the Kiwis as well, they're all really good athletes. It's just playing on better wickets and playing a lot of international cricket.
That's it.
And that's what they're doing now, and it's making them better players. It works like that. That's how the thing happens, yep.
Yeah, and your help, you know, is helping everything, basically, isn't it, really?
Got to be.
In your neck of the woods at Randwick Petersham, there's the high participation rates from girls? Is it going up?
It is going up. They want every grade club in Sydney to have a girls' team. We've been ready for a couple of years, but haven't been given the tick yet because they want the number of participants in your area to keep flowing through. The last thing Cricket New South Wales wants to say to me as the president of Randwick British, have a B grade side and an under 18 side, and then in 2 years' time we haven't got the infrastructure, then it just folds away. So we're building up our juniors in our area, and we've got a lot of 12, 13, 14, 15,
That's the way to
16.
go.
So we have to persist with that. So in the next 4 or 5 years we'll have 20, 19, 18s, and then we can roll them into competitions. But yeah, we're pretty much ready to go. We've got a lot of junior girls, a lot more than what I thought, Dawes, but they see Alyssa Healy.
It's everywhere now, yeah.
And Elise Perry.
Yep.
And they go, well, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and these girls are great athletes too. You know, Perry played soccer for Australia at a very young age and had to make a decision. And young girls would look at that. I'm sure if she was playing soccer now for Australia, she'd be earning a real good quid. Yeah. But she decided to go cricket, and when she did, it wasn't like it was now. So Elise Perry can take a lot. That little group of girls, Beth Mooney and that have been around, and they have moved the game forward in Australia, and they're as much role models and heroes as Doug Walters was to me when I was growing up. They've inspired that many girls. And Meg Lanning, what a player. Unbelievable.
And so, Jenny, when you came out to Adelaide, I see here you also was personal staff for 4 South Australian premiers and a grants officer, and you were able to secure funding for some cricket and hockey clubs as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. It was interesting working in politics because you really get a really good understanding of how important, how actually seriously that governments take sporting infrastructure because of how, the benefits to the community. And also, I've always been on committees. Even when I was 14 down my local sports club, I told you I'm a geek. I love all this kind of stuff. And, that stood me in very good stead watching at local level how those stories and those cultures and those decisions are replicated on international level. And then you come back to the local level as I have done in the last decade. And then I've gone out again and looked at board funding around the world on an international level. And, people don't change, things don't change. You can see the patterns and the stories. So it was a very interesting time for me doing all that, and it's really helped inform what I'm having a look at on my tour, which is many things in many ways. And I'm just having a brilliant time, a challenging time, a fun time, a very aggravating time. So it's all the things I like, being outraged and having a laugh at the same time. That's me in a nutshell, really. So, yeah.
When did you decide that I'm taking it round the world and I'm going to visit Namibia, Uganda, Mozambique, Nigeria, Botswana, Malawi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Estonia, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Argentina, Peru, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Barbados, USA, Canada, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Romania, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, Netherlands, Austria, Italy, Spain, Jersey, Ireland, Scotland, England, New Zealand, Estonia, Latvia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, Japan, Philippines, PNG, Indonesia, Australia, Fiji, and Vanuatu.
I've been
Great research, boys. Well done.
Jesus, Jenny, that's...
I let it lay down just after hearing that.
Mate, it's...
Thank you. That's actually a list of 54, and funnily enough, I've already been to 54 countries, but by the end of it, I've got to add some because I've gone to about 80 by the end of it.
Oh, we missed out.
No, that's fine. It's all good. It's all good because it's. I can come back on and tell you all about them. So, yes, when did I decide? It's kind of about 5 or 6 years ago, I think. I thought, wouldn't it be great to play cricket around the world? Isn't that just an absolute dream? And I've got to tell you this. I researched has anyone done it, and I found a guy called Jason Barry, who I would say is an eccentric Englishman, but aren't all English people eccentric anyway. And in the 90s, he played in more than 100 countries around the world, and he had to organise his tour by fax. And I tracked him down in Estonia, and he'd laid the foundation for Estonian cricket at the end of his tour in sort of 99, 2000. And it was a time when they didn't have much English. So the only place that they could play to find to play was at a horse racing track, in the middle of the horse racing track. And their matches were at the same time as the races. So they had to sit down while the horses were going round, regardless of if they were in the middle of the over or whatever. But Jason told me that because it was all a bit lost in translation, the horse racing management thought that they wanted to play polo, which I found is quite a common misconception in Europe. Polo gets confused with cricket. Now, I can understand croquet and cricket. That's a common one. But I've no idea about polo. But anyway.
Hang on. We're talking about polo.
I'm holding back here.
Hang on. And they fucking ride horses.
Yeah.
How can you even get that in the same world as cricket?
I have no idea, but they kept saying to them, you need a horse licence. And they said, no, we're playing cricket. And in the end, it just wouldn't compute with them. So they said, just add it to the bill. So the first few years of Estonia cricket, they were licensed with horses as well. So, yeah.
And what was Estonia like? Did you like Estonia?
Absolutely loved it. I loved the cricket. I was in Tallinn. I love the cricket, but also I love how progressive they are with women's cricket. So the women's cricket is run by a feminist man called Terry O'Connor, and he's from Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
Right, and he's been working with Czech women's cricket, and he's so strident about teaching women's cricket. He told me so many things. He said, just look out when you go around, because everyone will spout, we're helping the women in every country. But, I mean, we all know that the ICC will only fund you these days and recognise you if you've got women's cricket.
Boo
so,
to the
some
ICC.
people are just doing it. I know,
Boo.
right?
Well, what the audience
down.
wouldn't know, Jenny, is that they've got billions of dollars.
Yeah, they do.
And even in the main competition, in the test arena, they should be putting money into Ireland, Holland, Zimbabwe, all these smaller countries that have got no infrastructure. I've said this many times. They should be ringing someone like me or one of my contemporaries who's been retired and we're in our 60s and say, would you like to go and live in Dublin for 2 years? We'll pay you in euros. We'll give you a car. There's a unit across the road from the ground. You can come back to Australia a few times, whatever, and look after our fast bowlers. I know a shitload of guys that want to do that, but the ICC, which is all run by the Indians now, I think they're in Dubai. And
they are in Dubai.
And they won't...
ICC.
And they need to get some funding models out. They say, we give these countries money and we don't know where it ends up. It ends up in someone's back pocket. They've got to have a better business plan than that and better structure. Otherwise, it ends up 3 or 4 teams playing each other all the time. I mean, to have the West Indies out here in Australia this summer and play 2 test matches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's disgraceful.
Pathetic. That's pathetic.
When they were the best side in the world, we played 5 test matches against them. But you don't. How can their young blokes learn how to play? You can't do that.
I know.
So the ICC bears a big responsibility, and they should be doing more.
They really should. Yes, sorry.
That's okay. When you decided to do your world tour thing, how did you think, well, how am I going to fund this and how am I going to get myself around the world to all these countries?
So what did you do? Did you rob a bank? Did you win lotto?
No, I work for the government. It's just
Oh, right. So did I for 27 years. Yeah.
No, I also don't have kids, so that's a comfortable $500,000 saved there. So
well done.
yeah, no, I just work. Thank you. I just worked very hard at my job and saving for a while, And I never had a gap year, so this is kind of my gap year. And I'm very not techie, so at all. So my mum went in. I went to stay with mum and dad back in Manchester last year in the middle of the tour, just before I set out for the Americas. So Dad, oh, that's so cute. Dad went and got me some, some pesos and all sorts of stuff.
And some Bovril.
And it's a Bovril. And Mum went to
Just
sort
don't
out
bring it
my...
in.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
No, some things need to be left over there.
Sorry.
Mum sorted out my SIM card for me, and she went into the local shop. They've still got 3 Mobile over there. And she was talking with the guy. And she's like, yes, my daughter. And she didn't go into detail. She was like, for what? She goes, she's doing like a gap year. So I just need these countries for her. And then the guy said to her, after we'd sorted it, he said, and how old's your daughter? And my mum said, 44. And the guy sort of looked at her like, oh, I thought you were going to say 19. But anyway, no, this is I call it a gap year, but I've never worked harder. So, So anyway, I'm funding it. And then, as my dad says, I have to get a job soon when I get back. So, yeah. But I'll be busy writing my book and doing my documentaries and my film. There's so much going on.
Oh, good girl.
Are you going to make a doco or a film about these travels? And if that's a yes, what's the craziest place you've ever been to? Because I'm reading Mongolian cricket here.
Well, my travels per se will be contained within my book because, unfortunately, I'm not a brilliant filmmaker myself, and I couldn't afford to have anyone come round with me. And by the time I decided to go, I set off 8 weeks later, so it was too late to contact anyone or arrange something. I just had to get on with it and go. So I did that. I'm writing a screenplay with my friend about one of the countries that I've been to, but the docos that I want to make, I really want to get, I know you spoke to him, but I want to get Roberto Escobar in the documentary and call it Cricket with the Escobars.
We love Roberto.
Roberto won't leave us alone.
Oh, bless him, really?
Well, when I found out, and put the story together and he played cricket and rugby in England, that was so bizarre for me. And I spoke to him about being a bloody wicket keeper. And shit, it was crazy.
Exactly.
Well, we've got you to thank for that because
thank you, Jenny.
How it came about is that I liked your Facebook page and I saw the post you put up about Roberto. Oh, that's interesting, and I shared it on our podcast page. And the next day I saw Roberto liked it. I checked out his profile. He had 60,000 followers. And then the day after that, I got a WhatsApp message and we got him on the podcast. So, what you're doing, spreading the word of cricket around the world, helped us out. So we want to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
How's that?
No, thank you.
I'm
We're being
happy
honest.
to help.
We're being honest.
In your travels around the world, do you have a favourite cricket ground or cricket grounds, a number of them that stick in your mind?
That's a very good question. Because obviously you have your favourites for different reasons.
I heard you on another podcast talk about a ground in Guatemala.
Oh, yeah.
And there was gang violence, and basically the guys there had a choice. You either join the gang or play cricket. I found that how interesting
I'd join the gang.
Yeah, I would have joined the gang too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the other two. The other two I want to do a documentary about, or at least connect people so they can make the documentary, because what a story. So Guatemalan cricket was set up by 2 English missionaries, of course.
Okay.
About 20 years ago. And originally, Luke and Russell, who father and son, had decided to offer, I'll put it into Australian for you, offer soccer. And but that proved far too violent and macho for the gangs. But it wasn't actually, it turned out, the gangs who were too violent with the soccer. It was when they went down the hill and played the posh school. There was so much racism against the missionaries group, who were the indigenous Mayans, that apparently one of the parents of one of the kids took after one of the players, one of the indigenous players, with an umbrella. And at that point, put him in hospital. At that point, they said, "Oh, let's switch to something a little more refined." So they picked cricket. And then it's so good. One of the players was watching Warne on YouTube, and now he's a very handy leggy. And then I spoke to Hugo, who's now 20, and he was explaining what you said. The choice is basically, do you play cricket or do you go into a gang? Because, as Hugo told me, it's basically the same thing. I said, on what planet is it the same thing? And he said, well, most of us don't have, I mean, he does, but he said most of us don't have a sort of father figure or much strong leadership. So gang and cricket, it's belonging. That's the common theme. And that actually does make sense. But
so Ganga cricket. Not Ganga style, but Ganga cricket.
Yeah. Gangman style.
Is it Gangman?
Gangman style.
Gangman
I
style
see what you
cricket.
did there.
Yeah. That's a great story.
I just
great
find
story.
it insane to think that some sucker in Guatemala has watched a video of Shane bowling on the internet, and now he's bowling leggies in the competition in Guatemala.
Well, you faced.
I know.
Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
And playing for Guatemala and coaching the next generation of Guatemalans.
Wow.
His one of the kids who he taught, Hugo, who's now 20, Hugo said to me, 4 years ago it changed my life 4 years ago. It was the most unexpected year, he said, because I made my debut for Guatemala and we went out of the country, went and played in El Salvador in the Volcanic Cup.
Oh,
he said,
that's
but
unreal.
he said it was touch and go, actually, whether I'd make it on the pitch, because 4 months later I'd been shot in a drive-by shooting.
Oh,
wow. And talking about Warne, you've faced Warne yourself, haven't you?
I have faced the great Shane.
And how did you come out? Did you come out on top?
Well, I hit him for a 4.
There you go.
Yeah. So what happened was, it was come and have an over with Warne down at the
Did
Rose
he bowl
Bowl.
underarm?
No.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
I couldn't help
He's
it.
nasty,
Sorry.
isn't he?
Sorry?
Go ahead. Sorry, Joe. I had to be a smart ass. Yeah, go on.
That's okay. He, so he was launching his poker website. So I was actually sent down by the Wisden Cricketer magazine that day. And so by the time I got there, he'd had enough. But I said, I'm really sorry. Please, can I face an over? Because I've literally come out of the office for the over to write an article about it. Okay, no dramas. But we've put the nets away, so you can only go in the middle of the Rose Bowl. Is that going to be okay? I was like, oh, go on then. So we stride out. And to set the scene, Shane has got no shoes on, no socks, nothing. And we're just chatting away about nothing. And then I picked my bat up and he goes, oh, can you play? I said, oh, did you think I couldn't because I'm a woman? He said, yeah. I said, well, we'll see, shall we? Anyway, he lobbed the slowest full toss you've ever seen. And as each revolution, I'm thinking, he's patronising me, but it's Warne. He's patronising me, but it's Warne. And then in the end, I had to just slog it through square before. And anyway, what I liked was he didn't like it, so he bowled me 3 times in succession.
That'd be right. That'd be
and
right.
I thought, of
He'd
course,
say, I'm not letting
you're
some bird
Shane
hit
Warne.
me out. That's right.
That's right. And then there was a really funny punchline, which, do you know what, I was saving this for my book, but because you were all so good, I'm going to tell you my punchline. Right? So a few years later, I was sitting next to Ian Chappell at Lord's and at the World 2020 final, and the ICC had stuck me next to him for the Adelaide connection. So we're having a chat, and I'm saying, we've never met, but you've written a few things for Quick Info, so we've had some emails. He goes, oh, well, you must be Jenny, given you're the only female you watch on the staff.
Oh,
so I was like,
man.
yeah. And he goes, "Oh, you hit Warne round the other year, didn't you?" I said, "Well, he wasn't trying. I made it very clear. He had no shoes on." He said, "Doesn't matter, let's phone him up." I said, "Well, you phone him up. I don't have his number." So anyway, he phones him up and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm here too. Yeah, I'll meet you in the tavern later for a drink, blah, blah." Anyway, he goes, "Warne, you'll never guess who I'm sitting next to." And I thought, no, you wouldn't if you gave him a million guesses, would you? So he sort of led him on a bit. And then he goes, "No, Warne." He goes, "Warne, it's the bird that smacked you round a few years ago." And Warne goes, "Bloody hell, mate, which one?"
Oh, what do you bet? Yeah.
Very good. That's awesome. And you've also had a chance to bowl to Mike Hussey at Adelaide Oval, I believe, as well. How'd that go?
Yes, he was doing some PR for MasterCard. So I think my payoff line was something cheesy like bowling to Michael Hussey, priceless. But yeah, he was very much like, he goes, "Oh, you're taking it a bit seriously, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I've got nets later, so I'm just warming up." But, you know.
Isn't he a lovely guy,
Yeah.
Jenny? Mr. Cricket, just delightful bloke.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah, lovely man.
Much nicer than his brother, isn't he?
Lovely. Everyone's lovely.
His brother was a really good player and was not...
As good.
No, he was a very, very good player. He played a few, I think, one-dayers and maybe T20s for Australia.
Yeah.
But just, look, Michael Hussey had to wait till he made 10,000 first-class runs to get a going.
I remember that. Yeah.
Mark Waugh did, Darren Lehman did, and unfortunately his brother was just playing in an era where he just couldn't get a game, but he was a very good player, played for Victoria.
Also, Jenny, you work with the LBW Trust. I know Mike.
The wonderful LBW Trust, Mike Coward and all the people up here are just fantastic. Yep.
So tell us a bit about how you got involved with them and what's involved there.
Oh, well, yes, I'm just fun. Well, not just, but I wanted, you know, when I'm going round, if I've got the privilege of going around the world, I want to tell stories of, you know, mainly women whose stories wouldn't otherwise be told, who are doing great things in cricket. I want to obviously advocate for change. We were talking before about the ICC funding distribution model, which is, there's no logic behind it as far as I'm concerned if you're trying to grow the global game. But also I thought, well, you know, lots of people were contacting me saying, "We want to contribute, are you going to do a GoFundMe page?" And I was like, no way am I doing a GoFundMe page. I'll fund this myself, but I will set up a donations page. So I was already a supporter of the LBW Trust, so I thought, well, that's a logical thing to do, given that, you know, their work is to help provide education in underprivileged countries where cricket is found. I mean, that can be everywhere now, but, you know, the more traditional old member nation, really, countries. So I'm very excited that on my next leg I'll be dropping in on some of the LBW funded projects and also some of the work of Cricket Without Boundaries in England, who go out to like Rwanda and that and help develop cricket there. So, you know, there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things out there, but I really think as I'm going around, I'm getting very, well, not frustrated, but I'm thinking in our developed world with all of our privilege, there's so much that we could be doing. But I think sometimes you just need someone to say, look, this is what we need. People want to help, but sometimes we don't know how to help. So, so I'm helping with the LBW Trust because they're doing amazing stuff.
They're very, very, very good people. I've done a couple of gigs with them over the years, and I just love that idea of trying to educate underprivileged people. You're off to the T20 World Cup in the West Indies.
So. Yeah? I went to buy some tickets the other day, and I completely missed the ballot window. So I'll probably be paying a scalper, which you're not supposed to do. But you know what I mean? I'll be on a resale site paying a fortune. But, you know, if that's what I have to do.
Surely, Jenny, that you know someone in Barbados. You got to know someone in Barbados, I mean. Come on, baby.
Well,
you got something there. Cool. Yeah, babe. All right.
We will see. We will see.
I'm planning on going myself, and I haven't even thought about buying tickets yet, so I should jump on that pretty soon.
Because he's
Apparently,
sorry, all he's worried about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go on.
Now you go.
Well, there were 1 million applications for tickets, apparently. I'm assuming that's in the US. But
yeah, I did see that. Million. Yeah, so, yeah, well, even if I don't go to the game, at least I can hang out one of the bars there.
Barbados is a very nice place.
And Jenny, we're taking the podcast to Vegas in a couple of weeks to do the rugby league there. So,
how good?
Yes, and I think Andrew thinks he can go everywhere now and do the podcast.
Well, I'm taking a leaf I'm taking a leaf out of your book, Jenny. Like, I'm just inspired by your travels, and I thought, yeah. So we could, and Ray and I myself, how we sort of. I came across your page as well. We've got we follow the Minnow Nations in rugby league.
Yeah,
and
love them.
We love, spreading that game around the world. And so that's why we have that same interest. Well, I do for cricket as well. It's fascinating.
Come on, Dawsey. Who's your favourite side?
Yeah.
The Mad Squirrels from the Czech Republic.
Go the Mad Squirrels!
We love the Mad Squirrels.
It's the best name. Is there one club that you've come across around the world that has a really interesting name like that, like the Mad Squirrels? Is there something that stands out to you?
Oh, my favourite club names are in Belize. They're called Doublehead Cabbage and Crooked Tree and all this kind of thing.
Doublehead Cabbage.
Doublehead Cabbage, yeah.
Oh, I want to go on. I want to be the president of that club.
Is that Belize, did you say?
In Belize.
Wow.
Belize. And Belize, I had a great time.
I don't believe you.
No.
He's been on your case all night, Ray, haven't you?
I love you.
He's actually a lovely bloke, Danny. Belize on the beach, a beach cricket in Belize.
Oh, is that where
it is? Very, very nice, Belize.
No, it's in the Riverland Valley community because that was where the Caribbean people were brought to do the logging, and the colonialists came along and stripped all the mahogany from along the river, but they left cricket. And I was staying opposite in the Howler Monkey Sanctuary. And then while I was playing the match with the Belize women's team, I could hear the howler monkeys in the trees, and a hurricane was rolling in, and it was like, one of those moments that we're not in Kansas anymore. And then the other week I played just in the shadow of the Adelaide Oval at the university ground there, and I could hear the monkeys again, and it took me back to Belize, but this time those monkeys were in the zoo, and I was like, oh, it's so weird. Yeah.
We're taking the podcast to Belize, guys.
You have to.
One more thing I saw too.
Great story.
You're going to a thing called the Mediterranean Cricket League. Well, that has Brad Hogg and Brett Lee involved.
Yes.
And so tell us a bit about that and what's that about.
And sometimes Simon Cattett, and this year Darren Maddy again. And also everybody's second favourite cult cricketer, Pablo Escobar.
From Transylvania.
Yes, I flew to Transylvania.
Jenny, I did not know that they played cricket in Transylvania.
I suck your blood.
I suck your blood after the game, and I give it to my players before the game.
So, Jenny, that was Wits. It wasn't me.
I played cricket in a Transylvanian forest with Pablo Escobar. That sounds like it should be a T-shirt, doesn't it?
You've got the best life.
Unbelievable.
It's and I know about Pavel, and he played for a grade club in Melbourne too for a couple of years down here.
Was there any bodies up on the stakes in the forest? I want to know.
There weren't, but he reckoned there were bears.
Bad juju in there.
Can't you do the accent?
There was bad juju in the forest.
Can you try the accent?
I can't do it.
Can't you?
Do it. No,
Jenny, can you do the accent?
No, I can't do any accent. I can't even do my own accent. My Aussie friends always make me say bunnings because they reckon that's really funny.
Bunnings, yeah.
Bunnings. So anyway, the Mediterranean Cricket League is, it's a celebrity cricket league, and you can get a team of yours together and come out and play alongside Brad Hogg and Darren Maddy and just have some fun. It's on the marina apparently it's really, really nice weekend.
Which country? What island?
That's in Montenegro. Montenegro,
wow.
I'm not sure how to say that.
Montenegro, yeah, Montenegro.
They could have had it at Mallorca and you could have visited Roberto.
I know, but he's going on tour in England, and watch out because he's coming to Australia.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Who's bringing him to Australia? Do you know who's bringing him to Australia?
I do not know.
No,
Okay.
well, we could be involved in that just quietly.
Oh,
Yeah, so
there you go.
We might bring you out to
Yeah, we'd
Australia.
love to get you on board.
To Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, get me on board.
Yeah. One more question. It's a bit of I read somewhere, and you talked about cricket in Argentina, and Eva Peron had a certain cricket pavilion burnt to the ground.
Yes, she did as a political protest. That was in Buenos Aires, and I tramped round and round and round for hours because my sense of direction is terrible, and my mum couldn't find a SIM card working in Argentina. That was my one non-covered zone. So anyway, I eventually found the memorial plaque to this destructive political act, and it's in the shadow of a planetarium now. But my friends actually wrote a book about that called Evita Burned Down Our Pavilion.
Wow.
So,
Bloody Eva
it's all
Peron.
about-
Eva Peron's lost me. Now, I didn't know that. She's lost me.
Yeah, I'm out too.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Eva Peron. Burnt
Dorsey.
down a bloody cricket pavilion.
were you in before, and now you're out?
I'm out now, definitely.
Yeah, I'm
out.
following him.
Yeah, I'm out.
I follow him every week.
So, what we might do as well, Jenny, is when you're doing your world tour, and we might check in with you at different stages, if that's all right.
Oh, please do. Please do, because there's always something exciting and unexpected going on. And that's just with me. I don't know what's going to happen next. And then there's always a story. There's so many stories.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying, how many books are you writing about this tour? But I'm only doing one, but it'll be all killer and thriller.
Fantastic.
And no filler.
Yeah, and if there's any, as Mike offered before, if there's any way we can help you out with cricket gear or stuff like that, we'd love to be involved in somehow. So, one last question, Ray.
Dibbly Doobly, or the women's cricket chat, or how's that? Who wins?
How's that?
Do you know what dibbly dobbly means? I do. Jenny does too.
What's that mean? I don't know what it means. That's a podcast.
Dibbly dobbly. Did we say goodbye to Jenny?
We're about to do that right now.
We better say goodbye.
Bye,
Jenny,
it was
thanks
wonderful.
for coming on the podcast. We will have you back on again, and we'll check in with you from time to time. Thanks again for coming on.
Lovely. Thanks so much for having me. It's been an absolute blast.
Jenny, I'm going to show the boys what a little dibbly dobbly is after the podcast, and then they'll know.
Are you pulling your pants down?
No. Thank you, Jenny. Love
Thanks,
you, mate. We'll
Jen.
talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it?